this video is not going to go into detail about what it is that the Reilly head actually is and how it functions in doing a completed drawing. This is just going to be a step-by-step process in how it is that you lay in these rhythms. And I wanted to create this for those of you who already know what the Reilly head is, already know its background, and want to learn it and are just looking for how it is that you go about doing it. I also want to apologize for the audio quality. Believe it or not, this is being done with the built-in microphone on my computer, so I know that it's not too great. I have invested in a decent microphone, and as soon as I receive that, I'll be able to have better audio quality on my future videos. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump in with laying in some basic measurements, and then from there we'll build the rhythms. So let's get started. Okay, if you're looking for the Reilly method, which I assume is how you came to this video, you're probably already familiar with basic head construction. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but we will need some basic measurements before we can go any further. So we're going to start with an oval for the cranium, and then we're going to divide it right down the middle. Now, I like to use the tactic of dividing the head into thirds. So the first thing I look for is the brow line, not the eye line. Keep that in mind. And the reason for that is because we're going to find the hairline next. And the measurement between the hairline and the brow line, if we drop that down from the brow, that's going to be about where the nose should sit. And then you can drop that down once again, and that should be the bottom of the chin. If you had mistaken the brow line for the eye line and then tried to divide the head into thirds like this, it's going to make your measurements all wonky. They're not going to line up correctly. So I think it's important to remember that when you're laying in the head and doing the thirds, you're looking for the brow line. Once you have those in, you can now go ahead and put in the eye line. And as most of you are probably aware, the eye line is about halfway on the total shape of the head, whereas the brow line is about halfway on the initial oval we put in for the cranium. So keep in mind those are two different things. One is halfway on the total shape of the head, one is halfway on the oval of the cranium. Now I'm going to find the top and bottom of the ears. And if you imagine the brow wrapping around the head, where that goes on the side there, that's going to be about where the top of the ear is going to sit. And the same is true if you imagine a line wrapping around from the bottom of the nose to the side of the head. That's going to be the bottom of the ear. So now that we have these initial measurements, we can go further. Okay, so now I'm just going to lighten this up a bit. If I was drawing this on paper, all of these lines would be very light, but for the sake of demonstration, I'm drawing them much darker than I normally would. I'm going to put the brow back in, and we're going to find the corner of the brow, and it's just going to be that turning point where it cuts off the side of the head like that. I'm just darkening the eye line back in. And now if you remember, we already know where the top of the ear is going to be, at least roughly. I'm going to go from that little tick mark I made, and I'm going to cut back into the shape of the head, like that. And what that gives me is the bottom of the eye socket. Okay, now we're going to put in the glabella, and it's a very important shape, and you'll sometimes hear it referred to as the keystone shape, and it's because of its importance. It ties everything together. It's like the keystone in a Roman arch, and it's that little triangular wedge in between your eyes right there. Now we're going to take a line from the hairline to the eye line, and we're going to connect them with an oval. And it's going to cut right through that brow there, like that. And that's called the frontalis. And it's going to help us in placing the eyes. If you'll notice where it intersects into that brow shape, we've created these two little triangular wedges on the inside corner of the eye socket. And if you put your finger there on your own head, you can feel that those areas are bone. So that helps us to know that we can't get the eyeballs any closer to the inside of the brow than that. Now we're going to go ahead and create the eyeballs. And we're actually drawing the ball of the eye, not the little football shape. And The reason we want to do that is because when we draw the eyelids, we're going to draw them over that shape. So if you notice, they're sitting right up against the frontalis that we've created there, right up against that inside corner. And that's going to help so they don't get too far apart, too close together. You want to draw them large enough that there should be about one eyeball in between. And that's about right. Now we're going to find the rhythm of the temple. And we're going to start with the outside of the eye here and come right up through that corner of the brow and draw a arcing line right off of the side of the head. Okay, and then we're going to go from the little line that we created for the top of that hairline there and create another arcing line like that. And now we can place the top planes and side planes of the top portion of the head. I'm just putting in the top plane now, like that, and I'm basically just connecting the dots at this point. Darken that dividing line there, and now I'm going to do the temple here. Now I'm going to go from the corner of the brow, and I'm going to create a little arcing line that's going to connect it to the bottom of the brow. And I'm just redefining that shape of the eye socket. Now we're going to put in the nose, and I'm just going to start with a little triangular wedge here. And I'm going to connect that to the glabella, or keystone, with two vertical lines. And what that's going to do is create the front of the nose. Now I'm going to come from the bottom of my little triangular wedge, and I'm going to put an oval. It's going to come up against the eyeball there, like that. So we've now created the front and side of the nose, and I'm going to put that in red here. And if you imagine that we're walking across the form, imagine we're walking on the front, down, and then off into the cheek. That's what we've effectively done by putting that in. I'm now going to darken in the original line we made for the placement of the nose and shade that in. And what we've done is create this little triangle that's going to be the bottom plane of the nose. And now I'm just adding another little oval that's going to sit right over the top of that, and that's going to be the ball of the nose right there. Now we're going to add the rhythm for the mouth, and we're going to come right up over that ball of the nose there and create an oval like that that intersects that shape. And this is representative of the orbicularis oris. You don't have to know the anatomical name. Some people refer to it as the tooth cylinder. Other people just call it the muzzle of the mouth. Doesn't really matter. Just remember that it's there. And the cool thing is, by intersecting that over the ball of the nose, we've created the wings of the nostrils right there. Now we're going to put in the chin, and we're just going to start from that bottom line and create another little oval right there. Now there's a little area between your bottom lip and your chin that's going to usually fall into shadow, and we've basically created that with the overlap. Now we're going to find the laugh line, and we're going to start from the bottom of the chin, and we're going to create another oval that's going to come up and over the oval that we've made for the nose. And it's going to be more of a teardrop shape than anything. And the reason that the laugh line is important is as your mouth stretches and compresses, or if you have dimples or wrinkles on a character, they're going to fall on that line. And the reason for that is because wrinkles and folds in the skin, they're not random. They're places where the skin has sunken in to the underlying anatomy. So, in this example, if you were to put dimples, they would be about right there. Okay, now we can put the rhythm for the cheekbones in. And we're going to start from the side of the head, right over here. And we're going to imagine an oval coming through the head and just underneath the nose. The exact placement of this line is going to change depending upon the individual you're trying to draw. They may have higher or lower cheekbones, so you'll need to take that into account. Okay, now we're going to find the corner of the mouth here. And you remember how we already worked out where we have the top and bottom of the ear? Well, now we're going to use that because we're going to come from the corner of the mouth and we're going to create a little arcing line up and out to the top of the ear and then swing it down to the bottom. Alright, I'll show you on the other side here. Up to the top of the ear and then connect it down right there. And what we've done there is the intersection point that we've created right here just gives us another opportunity to turn the form like that. Alright, now we're going to go back to the corner of the mouth and I'm going to create a little arc up and over and connect it with a straight line. And I'm just going to shade that in, and that's going to be the top lip. And now we're going to put in the philtrum, which is that little teardrop shape above your top lip, that little indentation. We now have enough information to finish the outside of the head shape. And I'm going to come in from the bottom lip here, and if you just take a straight line right across, that's going to be about where the corner of the jaw is. And I'm connecting that line to the top of the cheeks there, and I'm going to take that and then connect it to the chin. You could actually stop right here if you wanted to, now that our head shape is complete, but I'm going to show you an additional rhythm that I find useful. If you come from the side of the eye and you just draw an arcing line up and over like that, what you've created is the brow ridge. And I consider it optional because although we all have it, it's very subtle in most people. Very rarely does somebody have a very pronounced brow. I did want to touch on the fact though that, you know, you're not going to draw these lines every time you draw. I think a lot of people misunderstand that about the method. A lot of times if you're watching an artist who's using this method, you may not even be aware of it because they're doing most of this in their head. And that's eventually the point where you're going to get to if you become very familiar with the Reilly method. It's more of a roadmap. It helps you get back on track, or if you're trying to place a feature and you're trying to keep it aligned with the opposite side, it's very useful in that area. So don't worry about, oh, I have to do this every time I draw. You don't. But when you're learning it, I do recommend that you do it every time that you draw. And I do recommend that you follow an exact step-by-step process as well. You won't need to once you become familiar, but until you do, it's very helpful to help to cement it into your memory. And eventually it'll become second nature. You won't even have to think about it. And you can do them in any order you'd like. Thank you for watching, and if you found the video useful, please like. If you want to see more of my content as it comes out, you can subscribe below. I know there's not much here right now, but that'll be changing very soon. And I will see you in the next video.